This is the Audi RS5. It's your classic two-door sports coupe. It's got the air of, I'm not burdened down by kids or dogs or any responsibility at all. This is the new one. It's very pretty, isn't it? It's quite different from the old one. The old one was a beautiful car. It was very crisp. This one, it's got a bit more curve about it. It's got this lovely tornado line, which some say is a little overdone, but without it, I think you'd actually struggle to know it was different. But it is all different. The old car, I wasn't a big fan. Yeah, I loved the looks, but it didn't really drive that well. This is quite a different proposition. Crammed under the bonnet is Audi's 2.9 litre twin-turbo V6. It's quite a machine. It pumps out 331 kilowatts and 600 newton meters of torque. That's 450 metric horsepower. Now, Audi spotters will know that that is the same power figure as the old V8, but it's well over a third more torque. So this should be interesting. If you want to know some nerd stuff, it's called hot side inside, which means the turbos sit in the middle of the V, which means it's really close to the exhaust headers, so all the pressure that's coming out, it should mean less lag. We're going to find out pretty soon. It spins really, really hard. It sounds great. Doesn't sound as good as the V8. We'll find out soon. Yeah, this is a lot of power for a car this size. I think you'll agree. Inside is a different story. The interior is so much better. This is, if you've seen an A4, it's basically the A4 interior. So you've got a really beautifully executed, beautifully built, ergonomically excellent place to be. The seats too, they're fantastic, and I really like this diamond stitching. And the car you're looking at least for Australia, there are no options on it. This is exactly what you get when you pay the base. And there's so much stuff in it. You've got everything you could possibly need. You've got a great screen, you've got the virtual cockpit, which is still great years after it's launched. You've got a full MMI system, 3-zone climate control for some reason, because you don't want to sit in the back. I mean, if you tried to get kids in the back, they'd have to be legless. And to get adults in the back, they'd have to be a different kind of legless. But it's a great interior. And what it means is you don't have to think. Although I do think white's not great, but it's a great interior. You don't have to think, and you can focus on the driving. Now, before I do drive, if you like these videos, please, 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 please hit like, subscribe, tell me what you think in the comments. It's always great to have you along, and I love hearing from you, even if you say something nasty. Anyway, we're off. So, RS5, no more V8, but like I always say, even though naturally aspirated engines are wonderful, they're on the way out. It's just life. It's what we've got to live with. So in this car, as we already know, 331 kilowatts, 450 horsepower, about 1,700 kilos, a bit chunky, but there's a couple of things that are different. It's got a new rear diff. Now, when they bother looking at the rear diff to do something with it, that means something's tweaked. And you know, if you've watched my BMW M4 CS video, something tweaked at BMW about something, and it really transformed the car. There hasn't been a huge kind of change in philosophy, but this new diff does things. Now, there's a video lurking somewhere, and hopefully it's up by the time you see this, but I've driven this car on the track at the Bend track in Adelaide in South Australia. Hello to my international viewers who know about that track. Amazing track. Really weird surface, and yet this car stuck to it like glue. And this is the first time I've driven this car on the road, and this is an interesting... It's always interesting to see what a car that was good on track, and it really was. I really enjoyed that car on the track. You would not say that about the old RS5 at all. Very much a road car, but this is good on the road too. And that's really important, because you don't buy these cars for the 1 or 2 times you go to a track every year, because that would suck. This car feels really good, but one of the reasons it feels really good is that they've sorted that rear end out, because it's not even so much the rear end has been sorted out, it's the way the power is shuffled around when you're on it. That's what's been sorted out. So the old car felt Well, it ploughed into understeer if you were a little too ambitious, but the limits were nowhere near as high as this car. This car has really high limits. But what's different also is, you feel the power coming from the rear, the shifts are really positive. This has got the new 8-speed ZF in it. Well, it's not new. The 8-speed ZF's been around for years, and it's amazing in everything. I have not driven this transmission in a car and not liked it. And it's in a lot of cars. It's not like this is a special thing. Obviously, it's tuned for this car, as it is for the RS4, but the shifts are really positive. And I will venture to say that in this car, they're a little harder than they are in the RS4. But the way the power is apportioned, and the way it moves around, and the way it helps you in and out of corners, I love the way this thing punches out of corners, but it also helps you on turn-in, because you get a much more confident feel from the front, both from the way the power is done, but also from the steering. So the steering's electromechanical, like pretty much every Audi is now. And I can't tell you how far electric steering has come for me to feel like I don't care anymore. And this is one of those cars that says electric steering has been cracked. People now don't complain about cars having electric steering because of steering in cars like this. This is so good. It turns in really well. You know what the wheels do. You know what's going on under the wheels. I mean, there's some big tyres on this thing. So this is running Hankook Ventuses. RS4s on Pirelli P0s for reasons I'm yet to establish. But the grip, the steering, and the way the power assists turn in really makes this car a lot more fun to drive, because there's nothing like piling into a corner really fast and knowing you've still got something there. It's phenomenal fun. It's really good. So I'm just slowing down for some very nice people who are wandering along the track. They wanted a lift. That wasn't going to happen. And that was the first corner hairpin, and there was no understeer. You could not say that about an Audi 5 years ago. There was no understeer. The road's damp, it's covered in leaf litter, but it's holding on. It's so good. It would be even better if this road wasn't crumbling to pieces, but we're in Australia, and that's what happens. Roads fall apart. Oh, this is a good car. And I know I always say these are good cars. We don't drive crap on the red line, but I don't know, there's something about this that makes it suddenly feel like, Audi has a different approach to its main rivals in BMW and Mercedes. We all know that. Quattro really does change the game, but in this size car, having the Quattro and all this power, I just think it broadens your horizons. You can use the power in more situations. You've got more to work with as far as capability and, obviously safety. But this does feel like a rear drive car. It really does, with hot hatch agility. You can't say that about cars generally. Oh, I like this. And then I get to do all this again in an RS4. So there's going to be some grumbling about the lack of the 7-speed dual clutch. I can understand that, but I can tell you right now, this transmission, it's better. It's better in every way. Okay, the 7-speed has really great quick shifts, but it would just get tied up in knots. And even though there's that newer version of the 7-speed that's in the R8 and in the RS3, with all this torque, the 7-speed wouldn't be able to cope. It would just either there'd be reliability issues with it bursting itself, or it just wouldn't be able to cope with it. And this thing has 600 Newton meters, which is more than the R8. So its torque limit must be somewhere between 500 and 600 Newton meters. That's, I don't know that, I'm just going for that as a number. And this thing can handle 1,000 Newton meters reputedly, and I reckon the reality is it handles even more. Because this transmission goes on a Bentley W12 twin turbo, so it's a great transmission. Oh gee, that's good. The punch out of the corners. So I think we're going to go thumbs up on this one, kids. The thing is though, not everybody can get away with a 2+2 coupe, because if you're a young thruster and your thrusting has resulted in the production of, well, more humans, that's not going to work. But you don't want to compromise, and Audi is very good at spotting that. So they gave us this, the Audi RS4.
From the nose to the B-pillar, it's basically the same car, give or take some styling differences. It's the same 2.9 litre twin-turbo V6, same 8-speed transmission. But it's a completely different proposition to the RS5. Longer, taller, more upright, roomy enough for 4 actual humans, and a dog if you like.
You would think that this would be just too different. Okay, yeah, they're both based on the same platform, but of course, platform doesn't mean the whole thing. It's not like they just lift the body off one and you can slap another one on the other. It's quite different. Longer wheelbase, it's heavier. It's not as much heavier as you'd think though. I mean, the RS5, it's a little chunky, let's be honest. Even though the engine is 30 kilos lighter, or 33 I think it is, even though it's lighter, it's still pretty chunky. It's 1.7 something tons without people in it. So that's a lot of car. The fact that it had a big meaty V8 in the front, and that meant it was a lot of weight over the front. So 30 kilos not on the front wheels is 30 kilos you don't have to push and you don't have to steer. So that's nice. Same engine, bigger body, you'd think probably not as much fun. I'm here to tell you, it's really close. I mean, this road is pretty ruthless in telling you how a car goes. But oh boy, oh, sorry, I just have to take a moment. We are going very quickly and that was really easy. Sorry, back to what I was saying. So this road's pretty ruthless, not this bit, but the bit we're about to get to. It doesn't let a car get away with much. It's bumpy, it's rutted, it's all kind of, you know, the surfaces are all different across the road. It's a mess, and you know, dodging wildlife, and you make a mistake here and it's gonna hurt. You don't feel like you're intimidated by this car, because cars this fast, this is a fast car. It's only 0.2 slower to 100 than the coupe, and you'd think with all that extra weight and all that extra car, that's gonna be much slower, but it's not. And you can fit 4 people in it really happily, and it's a very comfortable thing. In fact, it really does feel like it's just a little bit longer, which has the handy effect of riding better. It's also a bit quieter than the RS5, which is not something I expected to care about, but there we are. But it doesn't feel any heavier, even though it is. It doesn't feel any less agile. I think if you were to take this on a track, I've taken the RS5 on the track. If you were to take this on the track, I think you'd know that this wasn't quite as light on its feet, but it's got most of the same running gear. So like, you're really not giving much up for the RS4. And you know what? I'm a huge fan of that. I think it's great that technology has got us to the point where we don't have to give up stuff when our life changes. You know, like, it used to be that once you had the family, that's it. The family car was dull, it was big, it was fat. Yeah, you could get fast ones, but they weren't necessarily, they weren't like this. This car feels almost as sporty as the RS5, to the point where, you know, if you weren't driving them back to the back, you wouldn't really notice. That's quite an achievement. But the best thing is that even if it was slower, it's still an enormous amount of fun. This car is a heap of fun to drive. I really like the way the front end changes direction, which you couldn't say that about the old RS4 or the old RS5 for that matter. It just didn't change direction the way that you wanted it to. Whereas this feels really responsive to inputs from the wheel. The steering is much better weighted. The electromechanical in this, it's so much better. It'd be dumb to say it's like a different car, because it is a different car. built on the evolved version of VW's MQB platform, it's come so far. I mean, the standard A4 is terrific fun to drive, even in 1.4 front-wheel drive, but, you know, in this thing with almost 3 times the power, woohoo! And this is a car that will put a smile on your face every time you drive it. And I think when you're paying this kind of money, that is what you want. You want the ability to get a smile on your face, but also take the people who put that smile on your face as well with you, to take the family with you and have some fun. There is one interesting difference. Well, there's lots of differences, obviously. This is a wagon. This is on P0s, and the other one are on Hankook Ventus. Now that's interesting. I'm quite surprised that that's obviously a conscious decision. Like, there are some cars in the Audi range, like the RS3, it just depends on when the batch was made, what tyres you get. You know, they're both, whatever you get is going to be good, but yeah, there's a choice of 2 tyres in that car. Whereas this car's running, you don't accidentally put P0s on a car. That's the point I'm making. So there must be something about the properties of a P0 that ride a bit better. They're clearly a bit quieter. But yeah, I think that's interesting. I will ask the question, and in my write-up, hopefully I'll have an answer as to why this has P0s and why the other car has Ventuses. I will say that the front end bite isn't quite the same between the tyres, but clearly that's not just about tyres, it's about weight and geometry and all of that. But what this really also has, and is really important to know, is it's got that rear wheel drive feel to it. And so you don't really feel the power moving around at all. You feel it coming from the back. It really punches you. And, you know, that's the kind of stuff you don't want to give up, and it's engineered into this thing. This is a terrific thing. The new M3 is going to have to be something. I'm sure it will be, but it's going to have to be something, because this has a crap ton of power and it goes like stick. And carries 4 people. And the dog. I am impressed. It's actually slightly better than I thought it was going to be. I knew it would be good because I've driven all sorts of variants of this car, but this is really impressive. Quite taken with it. I'm now actually questioning what the details are that would push you to the RS5 apart from your lifestyle. Yeah. What are you giving up? Not much. Yeah, oh boy, this is good.
RS4 or RS5? You got to choose the car that's right for you. If you have to carry stuff around, the RS5 is not going to be much help. If you want the one with the trick steering and the shorter wheelbase and all that stuff, then you want the RS5. Either way, you're not really missing out.
That's not a Mitch clap, is it? It's just... And listen, you lot. Thing is, though... I forgot what I was going to say. No, that's it. Right.